During the early 1900s, when chattel slavery was abolished and Hebrew men and women were given the opportunity, if we would call it one, to act in movies, etc., little did we know we were being introduced to a different kind of people, stereotypes acquired during slavery. Movies have always been a powerful medium for the propagation of racial stereotypes, especially when it came to the Hebrew man. Early silent movies such as The Wooing and Wedding of a Coon in 1904, The Slave in 1905, the Sambo series 1909 to 1911 that depicted the bone-idle black man who knows his place and is beaten up by laughing whiteys, also noted Sambo is always male, and The Nigger in 1915 offered existing stereotypes through an exciting new medium. The premiere of Birth of a Nation in 1915 marked a change in emphasis from the pretentious and useless Jim Crow stereotypes to that of the savage Negro. In D.W. Griffith's film, the Ku Klux Klan rescues the South and Southern women in particular from savage blacks who have gained power over whites with the help of Northern carpetbaggers. Griffith later admitted that his film was designed to create a feeling of abhorrence in white people, especially white women, against colored men. In 1951, Amos and Andy ranked 13th in the Nielsen ratings, and in 1952 it won an Emmy Award. The NAACP responded by initiating a boycott of its sponsor, Blatz Beer. By April 1953, Blatz withdrew its sponsorship and CBS announced the network has bowed to the change in national thinking. Yet the series was in syndication more than 4 times as long as it was broadcast on the network. It remained in syndication for 13 years after it was withdrawn from the network schedule. As late as 1963, it still played on 50 U.S. stations. The programs were finally locked in vaults as of 1966, but videotapes and DVDs continued to circulate among collectors.
Well, as the clothes gone, that's the terrible part about it, Andy. All the clothes were there, and the dining room table was all set for dinner. And there was a roast in the oven. Everything was there except Sapphire. I tell you, boys, something done happened to her.
The 1970s also saw a resurgence of movies tailored to black audiences in a genre called blaxploitation films. Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, 1971, starred Melvin Van Peebles, who also wrote, produced, and directed. In the film, his character's black prostitute who is forced to go on the run after he saves a young Black Panther who was being beaten by 2 corrupt white cops. The film is often credited with the invention of the blaxploitation genre because its success proved that there was a lucrative market for such films. The film cost only $150,000, most put up by Peoples, and grossed over $15 million. Superfly, Shaft, Blackula, Black Caesar, Hell Up in Harlem, Black Gestapo, and many others quickly followed. These shows didn't exclude Hebrew women, such as Foxy Brown, also part of the blaxploitation series. However, what many of them have in common is the reducing of the Hebrew male's character to that of animalistic, wild, and humane-like qualities. Profanity is said to be a language ascribed to the lips of those with little vocabulary to say what's on their mind. Scripture excludes this from the wise one's lips. Yet the Hebrew male is rarely seen without an abundance of his glory. So perhaps he is stupid. That is portrayed in such films such as Dolomite, the Signifying Monkey.
The monkey lived in the jungle in an old oak tree. Bulls shitting a line every day in the week. Every day before the sun go down, that lion would kick his ass all through the jungle top. But the monkey got wise and started using his wit. Started saying, I'm gonna put a stop to this old ass kicking shit. So he ran up on the lion the very next day. He said, oh, Mr. Lion, there's a big bad motherfucker coming your way. And he's somebody that you don't know. He just broke a loose from Ringling Brothers show. Said he talked about your people in a hell of a way. He talked about your people till my hair turned gray. So Mr. Lion, you know that ain't right. So whenever you run up on the elephant, I want you to be ready to fight. The lion jumped up in a hell of a rage, like a young man smoking some game. He ran up on the elephant talking to the swine. He said, all right, you big bad mother.
Willie Best was among the busiest black actors during the 1930s and 1940s. Best reportedly arrived in Hollywood as a chauffeur to a vacationing couple and was later discovered in a stage show by talent scouts. Like his showbiz peer, Stepin Fetchit, Willie Best was stuck playing racial stereotypical roles. Today those roles are blinded by calendars and New Year's. In 2008, professional football player Chad Johnson changed his name to Ocho Cinco, or 8-5. It is unknown as to whether he meant that to be 85. Likewise, Willie Best was credited in many films only by a demeaning nickname, first introduced to audiences as Sleepin' a cowardly, shiftless fool. As long as the studio provided Willie Best with 3 meals a day and a place to sleep, he was happy. The 1970s stereotypical coons and mammies were again featured in shows such as Sanford and Son, The Jeffersons, Good Times, What's Happening, and Different Strokes. In Bamboozled, Spike Lee addressed the legacy of blackface and raises the question of who is wearing the blackface now. Many of the black characters in television comedies today are derived from the same racial stereotypes of blacks that have existed since the days of minstrel shows. Tyler Perry, currently the most prolific black producer, director, actor, writer, and one-man multimedia conglomerate, has populated many of his stories with classical stereotypes. His latest blend of low comedy, Madea Goes to Jail, is centered around a modern-day mammy character. The recurring character of Mabel Madea Simmons appears in much of Perry's work and is played in drag by Perry himself.
I'm locked up, they won't let me out.
Perry first introduced Madea in his 1999 play I Can Do Bad All By Myself, and the characters had appeared in many of his subsequent works.
Straight out of The Lion King.
I had enough of this. Vanessa, go outside and wait for me in the car.
What you think?
Go on!
What you think you gonna
Go
do?
outside and wait for me in the car.
What you gonna do?
Who you talking to like that? Let me tell you
Who the
something.
hell you? Who you think you talking? Who the hell you think you talking? You talking to like you ain't got.
I ain't got all day.
Lord have mercy. It's the country pimp.
What's up, old woman?
Get the hell out of my house. I just left our anger management class. It's time for you to go. Get out of my house. I don't feel like I'd ask you to get out of my house. I ain't in the mood for you to be sitting here talking back to me. Now, I tried what they told me at the anger management class, but you gonna sit.
What you gonna do?
You got my back. And I told Brian I wouldn't come to this class.
For you to take care
Everybody
of
got something to
you
say
supposed to
about
go
the
around
class.
town writing bad
I'm gonna
checks
say
everywhere.
everybody
Will you
got
hear me,
something.
you little bag lady?
No, do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Matilda!
Go get her, girl. Go get her. Go get her, girl. Go get her.
Calm down, Matilda. That's
Bring her out here. Bring her out here.
That's my supervisor.
Well, I'm the equalizer. Bring her out here.
Madea, just calm down, Madea. You gonna get me fired.
Know who the hell she thinks she talking to? She don't be talking to me like that, girl. She don't know me. I will set it off up in here.
Well, you're right, Madea, but you can't be shooting on my job.
Why the hell not?
Because you won't get me fired. I like my job.
She can't fire you if she dead.
Are you calm?
Corey, you calm down. I've been shooting since you was 4.
What I just...
Yeah, you ought to be used to it by now.
Madea, I just can't get used to it.
Corey, calm down.
What are you doing, Madea? Why are you playing with the gun? What?
Lord have mercy.
Madea,
I can't believe it. You finally learned how to duck.
Okay.
There come a time in your life you can be cool. Then there come a time you gotta act a fool to get results.
Wait! Hold up! Wait a minute! Wait! Madea! Madea, what?
Where is my foot?
Who's there? You see her right here! Wow!
Perry has said he based Madea on an aunt who lives in Georgia, as well as on his mother and several other women he knew from his childhood. But the picture is not about his aunt, mother, and those women of his childhood. If so, an equally talented woman could have just as well played that of Madea. But the big picture is that Tyler Perry is a man. Tyler Perry is a black man. And Tyler Perry is dressed in drag. In 2009, director Spike Lee criticized Perry's work, saying, "Each artist should be allowed to pursue their artistic endeavors, but I still think there is a lot of stuff out today that is coonery and buffoonery. As African Americans, we are not one monolithic group, so there is room for that. But at the same time, for me, the imaging is troubling and it harkens back to Amos and Andy." Other demeaning black male characters include Zip Coon. First performed by George Dixon in 1834, Zip Coon made a mockery of free blacks. An arrogant, pretentious figure, he dressed in high style and spoke in a series of malprops and puns that undermined his attempts to appear dignified. Jim Crow and Zip Coon eventually merged into a single stereotype, simply called Coon.
Robert.
Thomas.
Captain Shaw. I was so proud when I heard.
I had no choice. All the other officers are dead.
And Forbes?
Impossible as always. He's around here somewhere. How about you?
Working for your father.
Uncle Tom. Toms are typically good, gentle, religious, and sober. Uncle Toms were usually men who wanted to appear more white. Images of Uncle Toms were another favorite of advertisers, and Uncle Ben is still being used to sell rice.
Sergeant of the guard, post your sentry. Yes, sir. Touchdown. Shoulder, touch. Right down, right.
Wait, no, see, that's my space, nigga. I sleep better close up on that door.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd prefer more. A space with more sufficient reading light. Oh, I like it when niggas talk good as white folk.
Buck. The Buck is a large black man who is proud, sometimes menacing, but he's not always large. Bucks are usually identified as any fierce black man bucking against his current system.
That's good. Well, why don't you move your free black ass on out my space before I have to bust it up?
Hold up there, Buck. Ain't nobody said nothing to you, pap.
It's all right.
The man recently described, Sambo, Coon, Uncle Tom and Buck, etc., are not past stereotypes. They are not one-hit wonders or used-to-bes. As we've currently witnessed, the majority of the stereotypes were black men, and they exist today.
It's your boy, it's Kia, it's Miguel, music. Take a walk in the hood and show you how the curse is all over my people, man. Come on home with me, where the blocks are messed up. Crack streets, cops are messed up. Crack fiends, cops arrest us. No probable cause, man, they like to test us. Come home with me, where people look like each other. They don't care, man, they fight each other. Over bright G colors, Crips and Bloods, yo, they smite each other. Over flags, they don't like each other. Come on home with me, where people get shot every day. Blood spill on the block where they stay, on the block where they play. Double Dutch and hopscotch down the way. Hebrews, you make it hot every day. People search for the truth and it hurts. The same day to go to the liquor store, get drunk and it's worse. They slump, no idea that we curse. Come on home with me.
Imagery is really key in the emasculation of the Hebrew male. What do I mean when I say imagery? Well, when you take movies like Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society, Don't Be a Menace in Society while drinking your juice in the hood, going left or whatever it is, these images cast a negative image in your mind of the Hebrew male, you know, and the media networks, you know, the media outlets play a huge part in this again, you see, because this is how we're portrayed on a world scale, on a global scale. This is how we're portrayed.
BET, MTV, you know, you say, how is that so? Well, let's just take a look at it. You turn on your BET video and you see this, you know, you see this nigger man, you know, he's on TV, his hair all over his head, he got gold teeth, speaking like he got something stuck down his throat, yin yang in the time, you know.
By the mid-1970s, more shows with working-class black families headed by wise black women began to appear. That's My Mama, 1974 to 1975, starred Teresa Merritt as Eloise Mama Curtis. What's Happening, 76 to 79, loosely based on the 1975 movie Coolie High, co-starred Mabel King as Mabel Mama Thomas and Shirley Hempfield as Shirley Wilson. By the sequel, What's Happening Now, 85 to 88, the mother was gone, but the show featured Shirley Hempfield's Shirley Wilson and Roger's new wife, Nadine, a college-educated social worker.
I came to dance, 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 dance. I hit the floor cause that's my plans, 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 plans. I'm wearing all my favorite brands, 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 brands. Give me some space for both my hands, 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 hands. You, cause it goes on and on and on. And it goes on and on and on. Yeah, I throw my hands up in the air sometimes, saying ayo. Gotta let go. I wanna celebrate and live my life, saying ayo, baby let's go. Cause we gon' rock this club, we gon' go all night, we gon' light it up like it's dynamite. Cause I told you once, now I told you twice, we gon' light it up like it's dynamite. I came to move, 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 move. Get out the way of me and my crew, 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 crew. I'm in the club, so I'm gonna do just what the phone came here to do. Yeah, cause it goes on and on and on. And it goes on and on and on. Yeah.
Good Times, 1974 to 1979 was a spin-off of another show, Maude. Mother Florida Evans had been Maude's maid. Good Times starred Esther Rowe as Florida Evans, along with Bernadette Stanis as the fiery, intelligent, and independent-minded daughter, Thelma, while one of the sons, Jimmy Walker, as JJ, depicted the coon, step-and-fetch-it, sleep-and-eat Sambo rolled into one hilarious, never-serious emasculation of dynamite. The intelligent good guy son, Michael, played by Ralph Carter, faded away in the background. Good Times also had a father in the family, but only because Rowe fought for one. According to Stannis, the show's producers wanted the show to have a single black mother, but after Rowe's protest, they hired John Amos, a former professional football player who played James. In 1974, in the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, a made-for-TV movie starring Cicely Tyson, the story was of a 110-year-old wise black woman who'd witnessed a century of American and black history. Writers and actors continued to push for more variety, and the working class women were followed by strong, upwardly mobile black women and ignorant black men. The Jeffersons, 1975 to 1985, moved on up, with Isabel Sanford as Louise Jefferson, Roxy Rocker as neighbor Helen Willis, Zara Cooley as Mother Jefferson, and Marla Gibbs as their own feisty black maid, Florence Johnston. The storyline featured George Sherman Hemsley, who had become a successful dry cleaner, and his family, wife Louise and son Lionel, as they moved to a more affluent high-rise apartment. But while George was the main character, he is said to have been the black version of Archie Bunker. You remember Archie, don't you? Played by Carroll O'Connor, the white husband in All in the Family, who hated his son for going to college to be successful because he had to drop out of school during the Great Depression to help his family. Yeah, old Archie, the angry man who was jealous of his son and had nothing nice to say to him. It makes sense, though, considering the Jeffersons had been Edith and Archie Bunker's next-door neighbors and All in the Family. Only, I will have to disagree with critics. George was nothing like Archie. Archie was the head of his household. His wife's role of submission depicted to be docile and disrespectful, quirky even. And George, although the source of the business, was always told off by the women around him. All in the Family also got many of its laughs by playing on Archie's bigotry, while the Jeffersons became the personification of that racism with his famous coon dance. Gimme a Break, 1981 to 1987, starred Nell Carter. Carter played Nell Harper. When Nell's white friend died, she was asked to take over as caregiver of the friend's family. In Night Court, 1984 to 1992, Marsha Whitfield starred as Roz, the sarcastic court bailiff and resident wise woman among the family-like cast. The situation comedies depicted black families with strong black women in them. Jo Marie Payton was Harriet Winslow, the elevator operator in Perfect Stranger, 86 to 93, who solved the problems of two younger white men.
Well, then there must be some magic clue inside these gentle walls.
Her character was spun off into the hit Family Members, 89 to 98, where she was joined by Rosetta Lenore as energetic Ethel Mother Winslow, Kelly Shane Williams as intelligent and sensible Laura, and Thelma Hopkins as the glorious Rachel. Among the family was Carl Winslow, played by Reginald Vale Johnson, Harriet Winslow's husband. Carl is an officer of the Chicago Police Department and takes his job very seriously. It is even often suggested that he is good at what he does. He refers to himself as King of the Castle, although he is easy to admit defeat to Harriet when involved in typical marital disputes. Also fitting into his character, he has an avid love for donuts and other junk food. This plays into the fact that he is overweight, and in several stories throughout the series, Carl's physical health plays a role. His entire name spells out C-O-W, Carl Otis Winslow, and he is often teased because of this. And then there's the famous Steve Urkel, played by Jaleel White, Family Members' most popular character. Let's see why.
Now, come on, guys. There's a bevy of beauties over there just waiting to be swept off their Dr. Shoals. So what do you think, funsters? Let's dance! Now, if you want to do the Steve Urkel dance, all you have to do is hitch up your pants, bend your knees, and stick out your pelvis. I'm telling you, baby, it's better than Elvis.
Superman and now why me crank it? Why me crank it? Why me roll? Why me crank that soldier boy? That Superman and why me crank it? Why me roll? Why me crank that soldier boy? That Superman?
Hold your fingers up to the sky and pop through your nose way up high. Spin and dip and jump and cavort and finish it off with a lap dance in the
gon' crank it up for sure. Haters wanna be me, soldier boy. I'm the man, they be looking at my
Do the Do the
Steve was portrayed as a highly intelligent but annoying and extremely clumsy person who fondly admired the Winslow family. His strained relationship with his own parents led him to admire Carl and Harriet as father and mother figures, respectively, and caused him to be a regular, often uninvited guest at the Winslow house. Some of the Winslows, particularly Carl, Eddie, and Laura, did not always respond to Steve's admiration. Despite this, he was always loyal to the Winslow family and would go out of his way to help them or anyone in need. As time progressed, the Winslows grew to love Steve, and he and Laura got engaged to be married in the third to last episode. White's character portrayed one of an intelligent black man, but not without buffoonery. He was annoying, ridiculously clumsy, and his family hated him. On many occasions, it is said or referenced that Steve's parents had nothing but contempt for him. For example, when he was born, his parents tried to push him back in, and his parents do not own a car because he was born in one. He also once mentioned that his parents do not feed him every day. Therefore, Steve is seen more as a pestering little pet than a boy, all in exchange for his intelligence. And let's not forget homosexuality and his depiction of Myrtle, Steve's sister.
How do you expect to get into college with grades like this?
No problem.
Huh?
See, I'm not going to college.
Damn right.
I am going to get through high school and then get a job like regular people.
Regular people?
Yeah, you know, work in the gas station, drive a bus, something like that. I have a point, too.
Make your point.
You're a doctor and Mom's a lawyer. And you're both successful and everything, and that's great. But maybe I was born to be a regular person and have a regular life. If you weren't a doctor, I wouldn't love you less because you're my dad. And so, instead of acting disappointed because I'm not like you, maybe you can just accept who I am and love me anyway because I'm your son.
Theo, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. There's no wonder you get D's and everything. Now you are afraid to try because you're afraid that your brain is going to explode and it's going to ooze out of your ears. Now I'm telling you, you are going to try as hard as you can. And you're going to do it because I said so. I am your father. I brought you in this world, and I'll take you out.
The Cosby Show, 84 to 92, was the most popular among Hebrews and Gentiles alike, as it depicted both the Hebrew man and woman as successful with their 5 children, and I have to admit, it is one of my favorites. Although the show was a star vehicle for Bill Cosby, Felicia Rashad as Claire was the wise center of the family, who managed the household, disciplined the children, and kept Cliff out of trouble. Cliff Huxtable was a successful doctor, trusted by families and hospitals to deliver babies, but he could not fix the plumbing or the doorbell, and his wife had veto power over anything that had to do with the children or the house. Claire Huxtable was also an attorney, and her arguments usually prevailed his. Other works include My Wife and Kids, The Hughleys, The Bertie Mac Show, and more. In Hollywood, it is widely believed that the most powerful people work behind the camera. and African American women gained power there during the 1980s and 1990s. Their shows reflected favoring black male stars, but not without featuring strong, more intelligent black
In
women.
1712, a man named Willie Lynch wrote a letter. And in this letter, he said that in a nigger woman's natural state, she would naturally depend on the nigger man. Naturally. That's the way y'all made it, of course. So he said, in order to reverse this, because we have to separate the family. You know what I'm saying? You have to separate it so that she feels alone. She feels the need to protect her children without any help from the nigger man. In order to do this, you need to take the biggest, strongest nigger man you can find and rip him apart in front of her.
$500. He's a tree of a man. Big buck. Strong.
Okay? So she'll see this and she'll panic, of course, you know, and she'll raise her children to be slaves. She'll raise her sons to be slaves because she don't want the same thing that happened to his dad to happen to him. Okay? So you say, well, that was then, this is now. You know, that stuff isn't happening anymore. So why are people still in the same condition that they're in? Why are people in this condition if that's not going on anymore? You know, we have a black president. Things have changed. We have a chance. Or do we?
The same game is being played. You know, they just tweak it and fine tune it to fit this era. You know, so they don't have, you know, it would be too, I guess, risque for them to come out with a straight blackface thing. But then they'll have, you know, some sitcoms called like the secret life of Desmond Pfeiffer or something like that. It was something that came on back in the 90s that was actually talked about slaves. You know, these are things that are done by society. Crafty counsel, again, taken by society to emasculate the black man.
Even though black women played the roles of mammies and coons as well, there are plenty books and movies that shine light upon the pain endured by black women and their fight to overcome them. Gloria Naylor wrote The Women of Brewster's Place, about a community of working-class women who created a rich and powerful sisterhood. Alice Walker created Meridian Hill and The Color Purple. She wrote of Celie, the woman who finally freed herself from her cruel and abusive husband, the savage black man, woman beater with the slave master's mentality to beat his woman into submission, and Harpo, the Hebrew man who was being beat by his wife, and Shug, the independent woman who helped her. Terry McMillan wrote in her first book, Mama, of a poor, proud woman who worked hard for her children before she wrote of more strong, independent women in Waiting to Exhale and in How Stella Got Her Groove Back. Poetic Justice 93, with Condi Alexander, Maya Angelou, and Janet Jackson, gave black girls their own coming-of-age story.